Next. Welcome to the Next Steps Show with Peter Vazquez, a starting point for discussion y un poco de dirección. El negro está rabioso. You know, I just feel like dancing today and singing, Senor Bob. You know that? It's such a beautiful day outside, I'll tell you. And when you look at verses like Isaiah 59:14, where it says, and judgment is turned away backwards, and justice standeth afar, for truth is fallen in the streets, and equity cannot enter. See? I look at those verses and I say, wow, that's exactly what we see happening. Want me to translate that?
Nice scene setter here. Very cheerful, upbeat Isaiah message.
Well, the thing is this, those messages are cheerful, and I'll tell you why. Because they warn us, they teach us. See, and the thing is, Bob, we spend too much time, looking for the fluff and not enough time looking for, the discernment. And I have today's guest on. We've had him on back in February. We've had MRC guys on here many, many times because it's so important, ladies and gentlemen, because even in the fun stuff that we read, and we're going to talk about that today, see? Even in the warm and fuzzy stuff that we hear out there, there is that Vanbōōlzalness, that deception. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest has been studying how big tech, new aggregators, censorship, media, even politicians, digital platforms shapes what Americans see before, they ever get a chance to even think. And that's the problem. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us today is El Señor Luis Cornelio, Associate Editor for MRC Free Speech America. Luis, bienvenido al Next Step Show, Papa.
Gracias. Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you. Luis, before we get too much into the interview, I was reading in your bio, and you were an editor for a Spanish outlet as well. Am I correct? Was it all Spanish?
It was bilingual. It was bilingual. It was called An American, and we ran news both in Spanish and English. And I used to run their English edition.
Their English edition, right? So you do know Spanish, though, and you saw a lot of how media influenced many Latinos in this nation. Am I correct?
You're absolutely right. And look, this is happening, every day, and in every single theme, immigration, economy, cultural, news. We're being brainwashed.
And that's been happening for a long time, which is why I try to take time as much and often as I can to point that out. Luis, let me point out, today is the first day of Caribbean American Heritage Month. And I was looking at prominent Caribbean, not specifically Latino, just, from the Caribbean. And it was surprising to me because, again, when you look at stuff like this, you're like, okay, well, wait a minute. Us conservatives, do we really have a place, especially as Latinos? Now, check this out. Alexander Hamilton, born in Nevis, he was a Federalist. Shirley Chisholm, the first black woman elected to Congress, she was a Democrat. Colin Powell was a Republican. He's the son of Jamaican immigrants. Of course, Kamala Harris, Jamaican and Indian or something like that. Yvette Clarke. The point is, a lot of these prominent people are very much on the left-leaning side. And I think that perpetuates the, kind of like some of the myths that are out there about Latinos needing government help.
Absolutely right. And look, and Kamala Harris has had a distorted view of, what Hispanics really want and what, we wish for. And, it is no secret that we are, culturally Catholic. We're pro-life. We, of course, prefer low taxes. Some of us who came to the U.S., are actually pursuing the American dream. We're not trying to get, payments from the government or food stamps and whatnot. We're trying to buy houses. We're trying to get jobs. We're trying to, really leave the American dream. And I've been here for over 10 years now, and I love the Dominican Republic. But in terms of safety and the economy, there is no place like the U.S.
No, and I believe the DR is one of those island nations that does provide a stipend to their people. Am I correct?
Yeah, they do. They do have parts of government ran healthcare for people who actually need it. But it's very limited.
Yeah, the common folks don't normally benefit though from that type of ideology is what I refer to it. So tell me, if trust in the media is collapsing from party lines, right? Is the public becoming just more cynical, or are we finally, especialmente those of us that have been bamboozled for years, like the black and brown communities by the Democrats, right? Are we becoming more discerning?
Here's what has been happening. The Media Research Center has been, exposing the fake news media since 1987.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is a new digital, landscape in terms of information and news. And, you and I know that, trust in the news media has been steadily declining for decades at this point. But for some reason, these outlets continue to receive millions of visitors and readership every month. And that's when our president, David Bozell of the Media Research Center, began investigating. He ordered us to investigate, figure out where are these numbers coming from? Who is reading the news media? We know that, reputable polls show that. I think there was a recent poll that only 4% had, strong trust in the media. So what does that tell you about the other Americans? And that's when we identified what we now call the big four news apps. We're talking about Apple News, Google News, Microsoft's MSN, and Yahoo News. These are digital news aggregators. They collectively get, on a monthly basis, over 500 million visitors. And they are actively aggregating nearly exclusively left-wing news sources, while at the same time, censoring and excluding, outlets and sources and radio shows like this one that, might have a different perspective to give to Americans. But guess what? You guys are being punished for having the ideology and are not being promoted by big four news apps.
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, I was looking at some numbers that showed that right-leaning source placement, that'd be conservative-type news, fell from 15% in March to 5% in April. But, Luis, let me ask you, though. I mean, you're in media. You're a reporter. You put news out there. You work within an organization that exposes fraud. Not so much fraud, but just not balanced media. Right. Tell me something. Should there be such a thing as left-leaning or right-leaning media? Shouldn't media be just truthful regardless?
That is true, and that's why we wish for it. But the truth is that's not what's been happening. The legacy media nowadays, you can pretty much go to the DNC press website, and you could read headlines that pretty much are repeated on the New York Times and the Washington Post and the New York Daily Mail. These are outlets that are sort of like durmiendo junto with the same type of rhetoric, and we wish that the news were to be accurate and fair. That's what we try to do at the Media Research Center. Yeah. And we call the legacy media for just not doing that.
They appear to be so coordinated that one would swear that they meet weekly to decide how they're going to, kind of parse the misinformation that's going out.
And what's crazy is that I don't even think they need the meetings anymore. I think the moment that there's a news development or, insert Republican politician announcing something, even like when President Trump announces an initiative, it's almost like the New York Times and the DNC just come to the same conclusions because this is the problem. It's an ideological problem here, and that's why you get the same type of rhetoric on the New York Times and the same type of rhetoric in the DNC cycles.
Luis, in an article you wrote on May 18th, just recently, you referenced allegations of systemic bias. Talk to us what that is. I get a little concerned when I see the word systemic tied to things like, racism or bias or stuff like that. Tell us what that is.
Yeah, so I could give you a perfect example. So, we were talking about the big four news apps. So we're talking about the digital news gatekeepers of information, these digital news aggregating sites. And to give you an example of how systemic their bias is, When you take a look, you just take a small sample, and that's what we did. We're looking at the top 20 stories promoted on a daily basis at 8:30 in the morning. These are, heavily trafficked sites in the morning. People are driving to work. People are waking up. People are, clocking in their jobs. They're reading the news. And we took a look at that and the type of stories that are being promoted. And, for example, on Yahoo News for the month of April, for the entire month of April, only 5% of the stories promoted by Yahoo News in the month of April came from right-leaning sources, primarily Fox News. Now, the rest, primarily from radical left-wing news sources. Mm-hmm. So that's an example of how systemic their bias is. We know that the Times of the world, that the Washington Post of the world are, number one, spinning the news, and number two, censoring or failing to report on news that might be detrimental to the political left. And those are the same stories that are being elevated, that are being delivered to millions of Americans on a daily basis, by the way.
Yeah, and we're starting to realize that modern media economy, right? The censorship isn't always deletion or exclusion. It's demotion, it's minimizing, it's drowning it amongst a whole bunch of other news where you can't see the difference. Now, tell me, we're talking about the big 4 or 5, all these, big news conglomerate, but a lot of people get their news from the local channels, in their hometown, whatever those ones are. When we get back from break, Luis, I want to address that issue and see if, what your opinion is on that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have it, Senor Luis Cornelio, Associate Editor for MRC Free Speech America. We'll be right back right here on WYSL WLEA's Next Step Show. Don't go nowhere.
It's the voice of liberty.
Are you optimistic about the way that things are going? Do I never ever think of it at all? Don't you ever worry when you see what's going down? Well, I'm talking about my business, that is no business at all.
If you're looking for an electrician to help with your projects around your home, office, or business, call TriStar Electric. They're your friendly neighborhood electricians, and they can help you replace an electrical outlet, install a ceiling fan, or replace your whole electrical service. They're also the preferred professionals for Tesla EV chargers and Generac generators. Veteran and family-owned. Call TriStar Electric today, 585-880-0529, or book an appointment at tri-star-electric.com.
The youth of our city are in a new crisis. Criminal justice reform has created the consequences of no consequences and generated a whole new generation of 12 to 17-year-old kids committing serious crimes. Never before have we had this level of youthful offenders, but 90% of these kids are just trying to do the right thing and need a safe sanctuary to retreat to. That's Rochester Youth for Christ. You can be a part of this solution by giving generously and regularly at yfcrochester.org/donate.
Peter Vazquez and Next Step Show on the Voice of Liberty.
Tell a friend about the program. Appreciate you passing on the word here about Next Steps, WYSL, WLEA.
Absolutely, por seguro, Senor Bob. Muchas gracias. And mira, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget we are on social media: Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Twitter. We're there. Leave a comment, share a note. As a matter of fact, if you go to nextstepshow.com, right, if you're looking at the screen, right there on the right side of the screen, there's a little tab. You could even send us a voicemail that we could share on air. Or mira, send me a text message. Why? Because dialogue, without it, what do we have? Well, I know what we have. We have Kathy Hoco. That's usually how it happens. Ladies and gentlemen, I have it, Senor Luis Cornelio, Associate Editor for MRC Free Speech America. Sir, thank you again for your time.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me about local media. Do they fall into any of those traps that some of the big 4s that we've talked about do?
I mean, of course. I'll give you a perfect example. The New York Post is considered, right-leaning by third-party, independent media bias firms. And guess what? The New York Post is getting punished by the big 4 news apps. Mm-hmm. Their stories are nowhere to be found on this national, highly influential digital news aggregators. By contrast, you will get your typical New York Times, fake news articles on either number one or number second across Apple News, not on Apple News, but on Google News, MSN and Yahoo News. This is just systemic.
Yeah, very much so. So, Louis, to spend the rest, we've got about, I don't know, maybe 8 minutes or so on this conversation. I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about framing because, see, I believe that the Vanbōōlzalness, right, when people are getting tricked, like I said, isn't just deletion, isn't just emotion, but it's also how things are framed. So, for example, looking at a headline on CNN, they would say escalation plus the diplomacy, and Fox would frame that same article, for example, as defensive action plus regional conflict. One seems to, well, the left-leaning media seems to want to frame things as despair and, oh my God, things are falling apart, and the right-leaning media doesn't. Am I accurate in that, or?
No, you're accurate. You're actually very on point there. And I give you a perfect example. Anyone who takes a stroll through CNN.com or even watches CNN coverage of the Iranian war, and then flips over to Fox News, will probably think that you're, reading about two different wars. Why is that? It is because outlets like CNN have seized on every mishap, every error, even perceived error, to spin that and, attack the Trump administration's military operations in Iran. And this is systematic. It happens on every single topic that you can think of. And I have a perfect example here. President Trump, I think it was in March in March, President Trump came out and said something to the line, between the lines of, we're talking to the Iranian government on a potential peace deal. And the Iranian regime came out and said, oh, that's not true. Well, guess what? Outlets like MSN, CNN, the New York Times ran with the Iranians' response to President Trump's comment to run headlines like, Iran, refutes, or Iran shuts down, or Iran contradicts President Trump. Well, guess what? Like a few days later, our Iranian spokesperson had an interview on a legacy media outlet, and he said, actually, yeah, we are actually negotiating with President Trump as we speak. And only then, the outlets where, ran headlines that pretty much corroborated what President Trump said like a week earlier.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Your article, in that regarding the Yahoo News, and you used an example. I think the place is called Saloon, and the other one's New Republic. But in Saloon, they introduced an article that said, "Not just ICE. Do we need DHS?" ? And then in the New Republic, in your article, it said they included one that said, "No more, or no one is intimidated by Trump anymore." But Luis, to go a little further on these kind of framing of language, because it's not just news sources, it's social media posts, but it's also leaders in communities like pastors, like nonprofit leaders. I'll give you an example. Here in Rochester, there's a nonprofit really focused on the Hispanic community is what their mission is. And very left-leaning, apparently, although they claim, and they shouldn't be, politically biased. But their CEO in the last year was out saying, they're coming for us in regards to ICE, doing their job in our local community. That's framing as well. I mean, isn't that part of what you guys, I know you guys don't directly study language like that, but isn't that the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Our purview is sort of limited to the media, but I can tell you this. When President Joe Biden came into the office, he wanted a sort of like, this is what he described it as, this whole of society effort to, promote his policies and getting things done. And that's what we uncovered too. During the Biden years, we at the Media Research Center, we were heavily focused on fighting big tech censorship and this collusion between the federal government, non-for-profits, and the big tech companies, all working hand in hand to shut down any Americans, anyone who had a different view of, you name it, COVID-19, gender ideology, the economy, immigration. If you misspoke on social media, you were punished. And guess what? There were a lot of non-for-profits receiving money from the federal government, scrolling through social media, flogging your average Joe or Maria in New York City, just really honestly speaking their mind and flogging those posts directly to heavily influential and powerful people at these tech companies. And guess what? Your accounts were shut down. Yeah. So, Biden himself said it. He needed a whole of society effort to getting things done, and he did. And that's just it's an example of what we're talking about. We're talking about religious leaders. We're talking about non-for-profits. We're talking about big tech companies. We're talking about corporations. Just sharing this ideology and shutting down anyone who just disagrees with that. You don't even have to be a conservative. You can just have a different view on any topic. But you were considered the enemy.
Luis, I was. I think this is funny. I always say locally in my backyard, all these people that I've worked with growing up, all the community work that I've done with them, and then all of a sudden, they realized, well, wait a minute, this guy's a Republican, and I wasn't Puerto Rican anymore to them. ¿Qué cosa, verdad?
Concho, mira, y la gente me pregunta a mí sometimes, why are you not a left-wing activist? And to be honest, what fuels my passion for the truth is my hatred for identity politics.
Absolutely.
People try to put me in a box because I was born in the Dominican Republic and I came to this country 10 years ago and I have an accent, and how dare you support ideas that might be detrimental to the political right. It's just like, well, we're human beings, we're individuals, we all have different perspectives, and we should. This is not North Korea where you have to adhere to one ideology. Even though, of course, Democrats want us to be North Korea, they want us to be your Cubas, they want us to be Venezuela. But no, this is the United States of America. We have a First Amendment right to say the things that we want to do. And believe the things that we want to believe. Yep. It's as simple as that.
Or on our side, see the fellow conservative leaders or Republican leaders that want to use us as token Latinos just for their own agenda without truly understanding or asking the question. The thing is this, and this is what really bothers me, is that kind of behavior, like a non-genuine say, hey, you know what, Luis, I want you for you and your experience. They see that, and the thing is, the left beats us up in that. Hey, check this out, ladies and gentlemen. Reuters Institute found global concern over distinguishing truth from false online at 58%, with the United States at 73%. Luis, I'm down to the last couple minutes of our discussion. I have one more question. See, should Americans fear fake news more than invisible news?
That's a good question. That's a tough one. Look, they should probably fear both, and I'll tell you why. What's been happening. Americans are very smart. We're very smart people, and there's a reason why trust in the legacy media has been declining. The problem is that there are millions of Americans who are being fed fake news without their knowledge. Apple News come pre-installed on virtually every modern iPhone. Google News come pre-installed on virtually every single Google phone or Android phone. And what's happening is that people are being fed, push-up notifications from left-wing sources. And, I think it's only a matter of time until Americans realize, oh, this is happening, and, they're going to, fight back and pretty much delete Apple News and Google News from their phones.
It's getting there, I'll tell you. Although they those sources do make it very convenient. Luis Cornelio, ladies and gentlemen, associate editor for MRC Free Speech America. Sir, what's your website?
MRCFreeSpeechAmerica.org.
MRCFreeSpeechAmerica.org. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you check it. Luis, we've got about 30 seconds left. I'll leave for you to share with our listeners anything that you believe that they should hear.
Look, I'll tell you this, and Americans should be, thankful for the rights that we have in this country, and they should fight back whenever those rights are being targeted, and they should fight for fair and balanced use.
Luis Cornelio, Associate Editor for MRC Free Speech America. Sir, may God bless you and continue to bless the work that you and the organization does.
Thank you so much.
We'll be right back right here in the Next Step Show. See, con Peter Vazquez, no cambie ese dial. And guess what, guys? Lines will be open, Bob. 585-346-3000.
I was born to love you, and I will never be free. You'll always be a part of me. Whoa.
Southern Tier weather brought to you by Jones Memorial Hospital.
Lots of sunshine on tap for today. Temperatures will be in the 60s. Looking ahead to tonight, mainly clear. We'll be on the cool side, dipping into the 40s. On Tuesday, should be nice and sunny. In the 70s, should be near 80 with sunshine Wednesday. I'm Rich Cornelio for the Voice of Liberty.
I like to think that when people get complimented on jewelry we made for them at Walker Metalsmiths, they fondly answer about the jeweler back home.
You don't have to imagine it, Steve. People tell us that all the time, and a lot of new customers discover us that way.
Often the compliment comes from someone who's never heard of Walker Metalsmiths.
This happens a lot. If you wear jewelry that my husband has made, it has probably happened to you. Check our reviews on our website, walkerscelticjewelry.com.
So now you're choosing a gift for a graduate. Give them a gift that will remind them of their heritage and where they come from.
Your graduate has worked hard. As they go out to explore the world, a gift from Walker Metalsmiths will be a proud symbol of their roots that they can carry wherever they go. We make gold and silver jewelry for men and women.
Share the tradition at 1 Main Street in the village of Andover. We are open 9 to 5 weekdays, 10 to 3 Saturdays, or anytime on the web at walkerscelticjewelry.com.
FM Talk. Southern Tier update.
Bath Mayor Michael Sweet has repeatedly said the Steuben County Department of Social Services needs to stop putting up parolees in Bath. Steuben County Legislative Chair Kelly Fitzpatrick says on that May 20th incident at a Bath hotel, there was only one county placement involved.
Only one of the individuals involved in the incident at the Super 8 was a social services placement.
Bath Mayor Michael Sweet.
If that's the case, if only one was arrested, that's one too many.
County Legislative Chair Fitzpatrick said she tried to get Bath police to start doing patrols and regular welfare checks 6 months ago.
When they came back with a contract for us, it was an ungodly astronomical cost.
To which Mayor Sweet says,
of course we want to increase the budget. The taxpayers in the village of Bath, they absorb 100% of the cost of the police department, where we had, since January of 2025, 455 calls.
Brian O'Neill for the Voice of Liberty.
Spring savings and colorful selection are popping up everywhere at Victor Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, 6484 Route 96 in Victor. Try these deals. A 26 Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cab 4x4 pickup is only $389 a month for 39 months, 10,000 miles per year. A 26 Jeep Compass Limited in bright white clear coat is only $189 a month for 27 months, 7,500 miles per year. A 26 Jeep Wrangler Sport S convertible is only $249 a month for 36 months, 7,500 miles per year. And a 25 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited is just $399 a month for 36 months, 10,000 miles per year. All these deals require first payment, DMV taxes and fees due at signing. Must have lease loyalty. For Compass, must have 4XE lease loyalty. All deals require $2,400 cash or trade down. Other conditions may apply. See dealer for details. We welcome Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram customers in Victor, Canandaigua, Macedon, Fairport, and Finger Lakes. The selection's great, and they're ready with your deal at the most beautiful new vehicle sales and service dealership in the area, Victor Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, 6484 Route 96, just east of Victor.
Dunning Napa Auto Parts stores can service all your automotive parts and accessory needs, like oil filters, lubricants, brake pads, rotors, exhaust systems, wiper blades, alternators, batteries, and much more. They also offer the tools you need to work on your foreign or domestic vehicle. Nate Dunning is a proud sponsor of the Hobby Stock Division at Outlaw Speedway in Dundee. Get that great Napa know-how from Dunning Napa Auto Parts stores with locations in Hornell and Wellsville.
Mitchell Pearson Jr. Realtors Incorporated was founded in 1972 to offer comprehensive real estate services throughout the greater Rochester and Finger Lakes areas. And Mitchell Pearson will touch numerous nonprofits, including the United Way, Pittsford Volunteer Fire Department, the New York Warrior Alliance Wounded Warrior Program, Mercy Flight, and the Challenger World Series. They truly live up to their motto. Attention, care, effort, integrity have always been the cornerstone of their approach to helping you. Remember the name, Mitchell Pearson Jr. Realtors.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's coming. The great 2026 Geneseo Air Show, July 11th and 12th. Vintage aircraft showing their colors. Everything in one place for a great family outing. Tickets on sale now. NationalWarplaneMuseum.com.
When you think chicken, think Stearns Poultry Farm Stores. Stearns Poultry Farm Stores with 2 locations, Seneca Street, Hornell, and Route 244 in Alfred Station. Stearns, the best chicken in these parts.
Peter Vazquez and Next Step Show on the Voice of Liberty.
Well, as promised or threatened, depending on which way you look at it, 585-346-3000, 585-346-3000, or toll free if you're outside the local calling area, 866-552-1009. Let's see, Peter, what can we talk about today?
I don't know. Let's talk about price of managed reality. How's that for a title, Senor Bob?
What on earth does that mean?
Well, that means that New York has a budget. We talked about that on Thursday and Friday last week. We had assemblymen and women here telling us everything that's going on, right? Rochester has promises. Ratepayers, though, Bob, still have a higher bill. Drivers are still paying a lot of insurance. Immigration enforcement is becoming another protest battlefield. I mean, the story, well, I think it's this, Bob. Government keeps announcing rescue, where ordinary people keep asking why rescue always arrives, but with a freaking invoice. It just seems that way.
Some rescue, right?
Yeah, some rescue. So Spectrum, right? They reported, they asked this question, I guess. Does it answer the budget? Does it answer the need of affordability? And the thing is, I don't think it does.
Well, it depends on what you're talking about. Well, of course, most aspects of the budget don't address affordability. Sometimes you'll get some window dressing. It attempts to appear as if they're addressing affordability.
Yeah.
But just for example, I mean, look at the solutions that are being advanced to solve the high cost of car insurance. None of the solutions that they come up with do anything to really address the root causes of what's going on with the high cost of car insurance, which is the high rate of claims, expensive claims, due to criminal justice policy in the state, which leads to chaos and continued losses.
Exactly. That's the affordability crisis right there. It's in the policy, but it's not just there, though. Let's look local. Rochester Monroe Transformation Initiative. Have you heard of that?
Well, I was kind of talking about local because that's, with all the teenage car thefts, chase crash combinations, all the vandalism and smashing out windows and stealing Kias and Hyundais, particularly, but other makes as well. That creates a loss pattern, which the insurance companies take into account when they're setting your insurance rates.
Do you know that I have friends, right, that live in the city, that had to give up their car because of insurance? They just could not afford the rates. So they buying a Kia, buying a Hyundai, those are a little easier for people on low incomes.
Yeah, I wouldn't buy them.
I wouldn't.
But find yourself a used car that you can afford that's not a Kia or a Hyundai. I don't understand this Kia and Hyundai thing. I thought that had been addressed 3 years ago.
Well, I mean, maybe the issue of the car itself being stolen, Bob, but not the social issue of the kids stealing the cars.
Well, no, I'm just narrowly making the argument about Kias and Hyundais. Oh. Supposedly, they were going to, do some firmware update. They're going to make security changes in the cars because they're notoriously easy to steal.
Yeah.
And there are tutorials, I'm losing my voice here, tutorials online that the kids are using as a tool. And I thought there was a workaround. I mean, how hard can it be, right?
True, how hard can it? Because you know what? I don't know enough about how they're stealing it. Although listen, old cars were never stolen that easy from what I remember.
Oh, it wasn't. It was never like, in the movies where, somebody climbs behind the wheel and they yank 3 wires down underneath the steering column and they short 2 of them. You have a little spark there and instantly the car kicks over and starts to run.
Yeah.
It wasn't that simple. But I guess Kias and Hyundais are that simple. If 13-year-olds and 11-year-olds can do it,
I know anybody can. But those cars, I mean, listen, I don't know if they're pushed more, like if they're promoted more in like urban centers or anything, but if you drive around Pittsburgh, for example, you're not going to see that many Kias or Hyundais. You see some. You drive around Jefferson Avenue, Norton Street, even some of the Park Avenue, there is a ton of Kias and a ton of Hyundais. So there must be something special about them that's causing people to buy them, unless they're just cars made for people that are poor. And, resolving a theft issue doesn't matter. I know 2 people that, bought this car, just the first brand new car, hard life, they're on their feet, their car got stolen. And their life was devastated. They recovered a little bit. But Bob, I'll tell you, one of them, it was devastated for months. Like they couldn't comprehend why is it that their car was stolen and why Kia or Hyundai or the insurance companies was costing them something.
Because there are easy instructions available online on how to steal these cars. And I think it's incumbent upon the manufacturers of these cars to make them not so stealable, to retrofit them somehow. There's got to be some means of doing it because other cars aren't stolen with that frequency. So clearly it's possible.
I got this witty question for you, Bob. What good is a historic budget if the people living under it still feel historically ignored?
Well, it's an issue of marketing now, isn't it?
Yeah. That it is. But that's Vanbōōlzalness. That's what we were talking about the whole first half, right? Is things are presented and framed in a way that's why the whole concept of, I gotta coin that phrase, really. There's a process to make it.
You mean copyright it?
Copyright it. Because, see, like I said a billion times, that's why I asked Luis about local media, because I spend a lot of time looking at these local sites. I mean, when you brought up the budget the other day,
yeah.
And Bob, I get up probably about as early as you do. And I can't say, we'll sit there and read the news, but a lot of times I do. And in preparation, sometime between the time I get up and the show, I look. I saw nothing on the budget. I'm still trying to figure out how you found out. But I saw nothing on the budget. See, to me, that's framing. To me, that's ensuring that people don't have the news that they need so that they can push things like, Rochester Monroe Transformation Initiative.
Yeah, what you brought this up before. What's this about?
I did because, when it comes to revitalizing our area, when it comes to, just outright economic development and growth of the individual and the ability to buy and purchase a car, you said somebody should buy a used car instead of buying a Hyundai or a Kia, and I don't disagree with that. But to get a decent used car these days, at a minimum, you need about $5,000 to buy what we were able to buy before Obama. Remember the whole $3,000 junk for cars?
Cash for flunkers.
For like $400 or $500. Anyways, this initiative, this Rochester Monroe Transformative Initiative.
What is that?
Well, it's a major state initiative that comes into the region, at least on paper, right? It is... it's a $3 million for Rochester Monroe, was $75 million highlighted for the High Falls State Park.
For what?
And then the rest is left for public facilities and transportation. Is to create that public state park, Bob. They're creating a park in Rochester over at High Falls. See, and you know what? I did bring it up twice, and but this is important. Because here in Rochester or in this area, we do tend to get a lot of money sometimes from the state government in the form of grants and loans and so forth for the local government with some grand idea. And now it's this state park that they want to do at High Falls. $300 million. You know what that would do for somebody LD 22 where Mercedes Vazquez represents at the county level right now? What that much money would do just for that district.
$322 million?
$300 million.
For $300 million for parks And transportation?
Yeah, I'll read it to you as they have it. $300 million for the Rochester Monroe County Transformative Initiative, was $75 million highlighted for the High Falls State Park that's going to be over in the High Falls area. And then the remainder of that money is to be directed towards public facilities, transportation, street improvements, and public safety improvement. I mean, it's pretty poetic.
Don't we already pay for street improvements? I mean, isn't that part of the existing tax structure?
Yeah. I thought we did.
Wait, is this a bond issue or is this just a budget issue?
This isn't the budget.
Oh, okay.
This is Assemblymember Bronson put it out. He's, talking how great it is. The local officials are talking. But, Bob, I brought this up because I wanted to kind of go down memory lane a little bit, because we've tried this before. We've had the Renaissance Square, right? Remember that it was sold as the biggest redevelopment in the area? Didn't happen.
Where was that going to be? I can't remember.
That was in downtown, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. All right. Well, it didn't happen, so it's kind of moot.
By 2009, the vision is split apart. I mean, they spent the money. Somebody got paid. A lot of people got paid. Fast Ferry, remember that one, Bob?
Oh, my gosh.
$11.5 million was a loan request that they tried making, and then Mayor Duffy said, absolutely not. But what really gets me is that the High Falls area, Bob, got $40 million back in the 90s and 20s to try to make it great done. And now they think a park's going to make a difference? Ladies and gentlemen, 585-346-3000, 866-552-1009. I wonder why Rochester can't do great things like the city of Hornell. I don't know. They seem to be doing phenomenal things.
Yeah, they're coming right along, yeah.
We'll be right back right here in the Next Step Show, ladies and gentlemen. Lines are open.
WYSL, WLEA.
I've been out here so very long. I've lost all of my direction. Baby, when you came my way, I thought I had found my protection, but a strong wind came into my life.
Do you have a motorcycle taking up space in your garage? Does that ATV need to find a new home? Arkport Cycles is looking to buy good used motorcycles, ATVs, and side-by-sides. Or maybe you just want to get rid of that monthly payment. Then now is the time to bring it to Arkport Cycles at 7611 Industrial Park Road, Hornell, for a free, no-obligation evaluation. Or maybe it's time for an upgrade. We're getting new vehicles every day. So head on into Arkport Cycles today. We're your one-stop fun shop.
The youth of our city are in a new crisis. Criminal justice reform has created the consequences of no consequences and generated a whole new generation of 12 to 17-year-old kids committing serious crimes. Never before have we had this level of youthful offenders, but 90% of these kids are just trying to do the right thing and need a safe sanctuary to retreat to. That's Rochester Youth for Christ. You can be a part of this solution by giving generously and regularly at yfcrochester.org/donate.
Peter Vazquez and Next Step Show on the Voice of Liberty.
Sometimes we just start talking in here and, we're supposed to be on the air.
Keith.
Yep. And just in time to save us, on the line we've got the intrepid Keith. Keith, what's up today?
Well, to everyone else in the audience, if you don't call, I guess you will keep getting me as a bad penny.
Let that be a lesson to you, people.
Yeah, really. Really. My question of the day, with so many people not liking Hochul and a lot of people still really unaware of Mr. Blakeman, why is the Larry Sharp candidacy for governor not taking insofar as a would-be bridge between Democrats and Republicans? When he's had his show on your station here, he seems to do pretty good insofar as feedbacks from a nationwide audience. But that's my question. Why do you think Mr. Sharp is not taking when there's a vacuum insofar as either hating Hochul or not knowing Blakeman?
Jeez. Peter, where do we start?
I know.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Governor?
I'm not quite sure. I'll start with this, Keith. Do you remember how Sharp did in a recent election when everybody thought he had all this momentum and was doing great? The Green Party beat him.
Yeah.
It was a minuscule vote. Now, part of this is structural, and it's really unfair. It really stinks because he's been denied, a ballot line through the machinations of the major parties. So that means he's essentially a write-in candidate. I think he is this time too, is he not?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. But now, the strictures that are imposed upon write-in candidates, Keith, that the name has got to be entered on the ballot exactly correctly. Larry Sharp spells his last name with an E. Sharpe. How many people out there who take the time to vote, number one, number two, to vote for a write-in candidate, number two, and to write his name in are going to get that right?
Well, not to keep any of your audience, why isn't there what I'm going to hopefully call semi-intelligently self-correcting software? Why, in the same way that Blakeman had a hard time getting matching funds because of a foolish paper or something that probably was even non-existent so far as having to be filled out, why do these different state committees that
do you really want a self-correcting
criteria? Why do they make it so difficult? I mean, sharp is sharp with or without the E.
Because they want to maintain the status quo. That's the whole name of the game. The Democrats want to be the leading party, propelled by corruption and idiocy and bad policy, and the Republicans just want a seat at the table, and they want to, hey, we'll get them next time. The loyal opposition.
But do you really want self-correcting anything on these voting machines? You want more tech on there, though, Keith?
Well, I was just making it analogous to using a computer, insofar as if you get a digit or character wrong, there should be, certainly since Bill Gates is one of the richest people on the planet, there should be an abundance of self-correcting software. No one gets it correct by any means all the time, and I think you understand just the idea of true self-correcting anywhere. And I understand in closing what the doctor is saying so far as both parties wanting to keep power, but if we have a true open society, like your guest was saying in the first half hour, I think these established parties that really are into the deep state should open up and let the people have some breathing room and express themselves. And whether it's Mr. Sharp or anyone else, in closing, I think we all know that the true minority candidates are deliberately kept out of things.
Oh yeah, no question about it. Nobody wants change because it's the corruption gets spread all around, so everybody gets their little bite of the pie. They get to hang on to power, or what passes for power in some cases. Everybody's comfortable with it, and the electorate out there they're unaware. Those who are aware and are frustrated throw up their hands because nothing ever seems to change, and so on and so forth. It's stuff that goes on in all the blue states, and that's why we get stuck with bad policy, because there's really a lack of true choice as engineered in the state. It would take cataclysmic change from the top. Fish rots from the head down. We'd have to start at the top, and people would have to vote for it, and neither of those scenarios seem very likely.
Not at all. And there doesn't seem to be a big excitement behind him. And I will say this, though, because I do like Larry Sharp.
He's a great guy. He's great to talk to. He presents very well. I think, unfortunately, a lot of the policy that lurks beneath the surface is not really workable, and you wouldn't want it anyway. But that doesn't detract his attractiveness as a candidate. Keith, thanks for the call in. Thanks, appreciate it. Gary, our good friend Gary Stout, what's with it? What's going on?
Hello, Bob. Hi, Peter.
Hey, Gary.
Hey, we do have self-correcting machines to vote on.
I mean, the Democrats have self-correcting.
You're so right.
If you vote the wrong way, it corrects your vote for you.
In a perverse sort of way, Keith gets his wish.
He gets his wish. He just didn't know it yet.
Yep.
No, there's a lot of stuff's going to be coming out about the Smartmatic and Venezuela connections and everything that they say Tulsi Gabbard's going to drop some big truth bombs on us here before she leaves, and that gives her 30 days to do it. So,
Keith, I'm sorry,
we'll see.
Gary, you and I were talking before you left. We were recording the Second Amendment show, and you dropped a number on me that made my jaw hang open. 310,000 grand jury indictments.
Wow.
Are
something like that. A number over 300,000.
Several
months ago, I had heard over 100,000. But, they've had, taking Maduro was just the icing on the cake, because they've had this information through the work of Gary Bernstein and Patrick Byrne and some other people that really dug deep into the connection between Venezuela and Hugo Chavez contracting, basically, to have software made that could defeat an election and defeat the audits. And that's what they did. And they've used it all around the world, 71 different countries. They've sold stolen elections for money. But it's the same people that have been trafficking drugs and kids. So It's not a big surprise, It's just one more enterprise that these people do to control everybody else. So stay tuned, folks.
Yeah, and now the 310,000 indictments, is this largely 2010 election related? Is this Epstein indictments as well? Are there other subject matter?
I think a lot of it has to do with the elections, because don't forget, this is like a worldwide cabal that's running this whole thing. This isn't just the United States. They're taking down corruption around the world right now, coordinating with the good side of all these different militaries. So it's it's one of these things that's going to be drip, drip, drip. And if you know where to look, you've seen a lot of drips and dots connected already. And then it's going to come out like somebody knocked over a fire hydrant.
310,000 indictments. That's not drip, drip, drip. That's a tidal wave.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, we'll see. Some of these sources may be bogus too, because you got both sides putting out bad information, but these people have been pretty consistently correct. So,
your numbers come from some trusted source, right?
Yeah, so far. Yeah. But hey, I had a trusted source for 40 years that fooled me here not too long ago.
Oh dear. Hey, I've met a few of those people. Hey, that video you texted me the other day in regards to that, I have it and I'm saving it because I'm hoping that those that Gabby does, what she is going to do, and we're able to kind of tie it all together.
Well, that's my hope too, Peter. I sent it to you because they really connect a lot of dots in that. And, that's where I think using your common sense and just a gut feeling, they call it intuition or whatever. But if you start putting these things together and really thinking about what you've been told versus what made sense or didn't make sense, then you're going to find out that not much of what we've been told officially in their narrative has been really the truth over the last 100 years or so, at least.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be a real rude awakening for the people that have clung to the notion that everything they see on the nightly news is the truth, because it's far from it.
So the TikTok on this is just while Gabbard is still in office, or is this going to happen after she leaves as well? Or?
Oh, no, it's going to continue on, they say, for probably several years it'll take to clean this up completely.
Well, that many indictments, I have to assume it's going to go on.
Yeah, just physically, how are you going to serve that many things and put the people? But I don't think a lot of them are going to get housed for long. They say they've done some really high-level expansions at Guantanamo Bay, including courtrooms set up for broadcasting and geriatric facilities. So I think we're going to see a lot of our old crooked politicians go bye-bye.
I sure hope so, Gary. I truly do.
That's the only way to really justify or to have justice for all the people that have been ripped off and our money stolen and wasted and defrauded, and then they use it to fund wars to kill our kids.
Absolutely. Gary Stout, ladies and gentlemen. And Gary, I appreciate the call, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, let me leave you on this note. Democrats, right, the left, truly believe that America is defined by its sins, not its achievements. We'll be right back here tomorrow. See what the Next Step show con el Señor Salvaje. Be a leader. Don't let a second go by where you are not a voice for liberty.
No soy niño empedernido, no me juzgues, te lo pido. Reconoce que el amor llegó esta vez.
Are you new to town and resorting to big box stores and online shopping to revamp your home? Get big city experience and